Welcome to Sports Scene. I'm Michael Fumafredo.
I'm Jonathan Martin.
I'm Drake Lee.
And I'm Will Camardella. An SEC team sits atop the first college football playoff rankings, but it's Tennessee taking the number one spot for the first time in school history. Ohio State, Georgia, and Clemson round out the top four, but the biggest shocker was 5 through 7, with undefeated Michigan and TCU sandwiching Alabama. USC comes in at number 9, one spot behind Pac-12 rival Oregon. Here's what Lincoln Riley had to say about the reveal yesterday at practice.
I don't care about them. Most of the time I don't even know what it is because it doesn't matter right now. It does not matter one bit. You go be ranked whatever, you go lose, it don't matter. You keep winning, it takes care of itself. And I care about it at one time, and that's the last one. That's all that matters.
So obviously Lincoln Riley isn't too worried about the rankings right now, but there was anything on that top 25 that really stood out to you this first week?
Yeah, what really stood out to me was the fact that UCLA was outside of the top 10 when they should have been in the top 10. They beat Utah when USC lost to Utah. So I think that is a piece of information that we need to take and we need to see, and we need to see a change, I
was shocked about that too, but what these rankings really say is which matchups are going to determine the 4-team playoff field at the end of the season. Especially this week, you have number 6 versus number 10, and then number 1 playing number 3. How can we count out the Ohio State-Michigan game at Rivalry Week? But November 19th, that's where I'm marking my calendars. You have the Crosstown Rivalry, USC versus UCLA. And then up north, you have Oregon playing Utah. The winners of those two games most likely playing in the Pac-12 championship game a week from that game. So that's the game I'm looking forward to.
14 days after its first loss in Utah, USC football moved back into the win column, pulling off a 45-37 road victory against Arizona to move to 7-1 on the season. It was a back-and-forth game from the very start, with both teams exchanging scoring drives on the first 6 possessions of the game. The Trojans led by just a point after Arizona's first second-half possession, but scored 4 touchdowns in their next 6 possessions to break 40 points for the 6th time this season and put the game away.
It was more tough sledding, on the other hand, for the Trojans' defense last Saturday in Tucson, as the group surrendered 37 points to Arizona, including 28 in the second half. Let's hear what Tuli Pelotu had to say about the Trojans' defensive performance.
When something like that happens, we get a turnover and then our offensive scores, we gotta keep that a foot on the gas. And I wouldn't say we let up, but it looked like we let up and stuff. So we just gotta keep applying pressure and just keep going. I'd say just execution. I think our effort is there. Everybody running to the ball. I think our effort is there. Just execution. Sometimes you want to go so hard, but sometimes you do too much. So I think we just gotta execute your job and we'll be straight.
USC gave up 543 total yards to the Wildcats, 380 of which were through the air against quarterback Jaden DeLaura. The Trojans had trouble with wideout Dorian Singer in particular, who compiled 141 receiving yards and found the end zone 3 times. The only saving grace for USC defensively was a third-quarter interception by Bryson Shaw, which led to a Trojan touchdown that put the team ahead by 2 scores. Shaw's pick propelled him to receive the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week award. So after yet another lackluster performance, how big a liability is this Trojans defense right now?
They get the stops when they need to, and they've won 7 games now, but that's because the offense is scoring 40 points. The way this team truly becomes elite and a playoff conversation starter, you get the pass rush involved. You need them to stop the offensive quarterback and make the sack. USC had 27 pressures. Guess how many sacks they had? 2. That's unacceptable for a team that's got so many good players on that pass rush, and it's not helping the secondary out at all. They need to get better, and then this team will truly be one of the top 5 if they aren't already.
Well, if you're an optimist about the USC defense,
I am.
You are. What you probably say is, look, the 27 pressures, you're so close to finishing a lot of these plays. How many sacks did they not get that they absolutely could have in that sort of game? But the thing I'm just worried about is this is 2 straight weeks now, and they've given up 80 points total and over 1,100 yards of offense. This defense is regressing in a serious way. It's the offense carrying them so they can even be competitive in this games. We just talked about the playoff rankings. USC is not going to impress a lot of people nationally if they don't play more complete football.
Well, the defense may have struggled, though, but it was the offense that was at their absolute best. USC scored 40 points for the sixth time thanks to a stellar game from Caleb Williams. Williams set a new career high with 411 passing yards and threw 5 touchdowns. That was all despite missing Jordan Addison and Mario Williams. Taj Washington was the Trojans' leading receiver with 7 catches for 118 yards and 2 scores. Kyle Ford, Brendan Rice, and Raleek Brown found pay dirt for the first time this year, while Travis Dye tore up the rush defense for his 5th 100-yard game and 8th score of the season. With so many stars out this week, new faces taking on big roles, who shined the brightest? Who took their opportunity and ran with it?
Well, I feel like the obvious answer would be Taj Washington or Kyle Ford, but I want to give some love to Brendan Rice, who stepped up as a redshirt junior, and he had 5 receptions for 62 yards with a touchdown, so that's huge production, and you want to see more of that when you have, your stars out of the games. You want to see people step up. You want to have that next man up mentality, so it's huge to see that from USC offense.
Seeing a little bit of Jerry in him, I guess.
Yeah, I guess the most surprising thing, that we've seen from USC, in my opinion, all season, is what this offense has been able to do minus Jordan Addison. Early in the year, it really seemed like their passing game was going to rely entirely around him. But you take a look on the field, guys like Taj Washington, guys like Kyle Ford finding the end zone in a game against Arizona, really contributing down the field. Caleb Williams getting comfortable with a lot of his new teammates, and Mario Williams didn't play in this game either. They still were able to produce at a very high level.
Absolutely, and it speaks really well to the depth that this team has, which they're going to have to use against UCLA. I mean, it's a number 9 against a number 10. It's going to be pretty difficult, but I think if USC can use all their pieces, of course having Jordan Addison and Mario Williams will be absolutely fantastic, but I think that even if you don't have them, I think USC will be in a good place to face off against UCLA.
Guys, I know he's not a new face, but we're missing a really obvious one here, and that's Caleb Williams.
Oof.
Caleb was given his opportunity to cook from Lincoln Riley, and he made a Michelin star meal. Usually you'd expect when your top 2 receivers are out, people to struggle. You saw Joe Burrow do that without Jamar Chase on Monday night, but he actually said in the postgame that he liked having the options to throw to so many different receivers, including guys like Raleek Brown, who scored his first touchdown. Kyle Ford scored his first touchdown. Look at how it turned out when he had all these different targets to go to. That's just what's going to happen this year. Now, defenses are going to have to choose. Do we focus in on Addison and Williams, or do we have to guard everyone on the field?
And not to mention, USC is continuing to run the heck out of the football. I mean, Travis Dye is such an important asset for an offense, especially to be Caleb Williams' sort of security blanket back there. Yep. I mean, 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s, automatic for this USC offense because Dye is a crafty vet who knows how to get those yards. They get the push up front. That makes everything else go for USC offensively.
Yes, indeed. So the USC will face the Cal Golden Bears this Saturday for our homecoming game. This Golden Bears team stinks. They are on a 4-game losing streak and hold an overall record of 3-5 and are 1-4 in Pac-12 play. In fact, Cal has lost 22 of their last 23 games against ranked opponents in the top 10. So this should be a cakewalk for the Trojans. The Golden Bears offense is led by senior quarterback Jack Plummer, who has 1,968 yards on the season with 13 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Last week against Oregon, he completed 20 passes for 214 yards and finished with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions with a QB rating of 26.7. So a question for you guys. Is there any fear that USC may overlook this Cal team and live to regret it?
I tend to say no. I mean, I think when your defense is struggling the last 2 weeks the way that they have, yeah, you beat Arizona, but I don't think anyone on that coaching staff is going to allow USC to take a week off and just assume you're going to roll through an opponent. They're going to be really emphasizing that there needs to be improvement there. So the question for me is not are they going to beat Cal? The question is how it looks. Because if there was ever a week for this defense to get right, it's against Cal. They're one of the lowest scoring offenses in all of the Pac-12. They don't compile a lot of yards. They really have put up some lackluster offensive performances, scoring 13 points against Colorado, 21, or not many against Washington State either. You're going to need to have a big feel-good performance in this game, and that's what the coaching staff's going to be emphasizing.
Yeah, Jonathan, I'm going to have to knock on some wood here because you just may have jinxed the Trojans to beyond belief here. But, you know, you're right. This is not a cakewalk game for them because no game is. But, Will, you mentioned filling some holes. The defense has that opportunity this week. Cal's defense rushing wise, Cal's rush offense is horrendous. They're bottom 7 in the entirety of college football. And Jack Plummer, he's top 10 in sacks right now. So the defense that's had a bad pass rush, a bad rush defense, they're going to have a chance to have a little bit of a tune-up game here, but it's any given Saturday in college football. You can't take a game lightly.
Yes, indeed.
I guess the only way that would happen is the one thing Cal has done very well is be opportunistic on defense, not quite as much as USC, especially early in the season. But they're second in the Pac-12 in interceptions with 10. But that sort of means USC is going to be their kryptonite because they've turned the ball over one time this season.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a fun game. But now let's move to some other football, and that would be USC women's soccer. They picked up a pair of wins this weekend over Washington and Washington State. On Thursday, USC got off to a hot start against the Huskies. The Trojans took advantage of an early corner, and Helena Sampaio scored her first goal of the season. Sampaio wasn't done. She curled in a perfect ball to Croy Bethune to net the second half winner. On Sunday, USC found itself down a goal in the second half, but a pair of goals from Angeles Escobar and Simone Jackson helped power USC to a 3-2 victory over Washington State, and a big weekend sweep.
After losing to UC Irvine in the first round of last year's tournament, UCLA is looking to right its wrongs around this time. Those efforts hit a roadblock earlier this month when the Bruins dropped a close contest up in Palo Alto. Earlier last month, despite the loss to the Cardinals, the former first-round exits are still the number 1 team in the country, and the win against USC on Friday would lock up a share of the Pac-12 season title. Stanford can do the same later on Friday night when they head to Berkeley to take on the Golden Bears. So let's send this to Sam and Eli for more information.
Yeah, Eli, if this USC team, this short-handed Trojan squad, if they're going to play a little spoiler on Friday, take a Pac-12 title off those top-ranked Bruins, they're going to need contributions up and down the roster, and that starts with defender, midfielder, attacker,
and superstar
Zoe Burns. Let's talk a little bit about that versatility. We'll go back to Cal a couple weeks ago, trying to see out this 2-0 win on the road. Anna Smith comes off her line out here, wide open goal, but she's an all Pac-12 defender for a reason, positions herself perfectly outside this 6-yard box and uses all 5 foot 2 inches of that frame to get up and head that ball off the line. Let's roll the tape.
Yeah, when you take a look at it, just puts herself in the right position as she always does. Zoe Burns is a star in the defensive backfield. Really not even a true defender when she started playing college soccer, but she has transitioned into an elite defender for USC. But that's not all she can do. This season, we've seen her move up. This time she's playing on the wing, which is a position she has been more accustomed to in high school and with the Canadian youth national team. Here, she has the ball. You see 4 defenders around her. There's one player to pass it to. She gives it, she gets it back, gives it one more time. 2 perfect feeds to get the assist and an easy goal for the Trojans. Let's watch it. And you just watch Zoe Burns creating opportunities for her teammates. She is a great team player. She is a great defender. There's a lot of things she can do right.
Perfect little give and go there, and oftentimes that's a hopeful cross into maybe a late runner. Instead, pings it along the ground and they get a nice goal. Let's take you back just this Sunday. We've covered attack, we've covered defense. What is this, number 10, Zoe Burns? You talked to DeMello last year. She talked about how Zoe Burns was a natural attacking midfielder as well. She can do everything, and she does it for everyone. We'll see here. Early on in this game, 3.5 minutes in, Jalen Eisenhart making a run down this left-hand side. We got Hannah White making a run at the back post. Zoe Burns is all the way back here, and we got yards of space here in the middle. She's going to find it. She's going to put herself right outside this 18-yard box, and she's going to get a pass from Jalen Eisenhart and slot it home to give USC this early lead. Let's roll the tape.
And she just knows how to use space, finds her way in between defenders, and a rocket for a leg, an easy goal for Zoe Burns. But we just covered her as a defender, a midfielder, an attacker. She can do it all. She puts herself in the right positions, but ultimately, she just has the skills. She is just an elite soccer player. Let's watch what she does right here.
This is just disgusting, and perfectly onto the legs of Leah Farmer. And she hits her in stride down to this corner. They get a corner off that kick, and they take the 1-0 lead.
USC plays UCLA. That's the number 1 team in the nation. No team has been better this season than the Bruins. USC is going to need Zoe Burns to make plays at all 3 levels on Friday if they have any hope to win against their crosstown rival. Let's send it back to the desk for more.
Thanks, Eli. Men's water polo celebrated Senior Day this weekend. The 7 seniors honored left on a high note with a 19-14 victory over Stanford. Jake Earhart now ranks 8th all-time in career goals for the Trojans after a team-leading 5-goal game. Massimo Di Martire and Ashworth Molthen added 4 apiece. USC outscored Stanford 11-6 in the second half, leading to the most points any team has scored on the Cardinal this season. Every senior honored Sunday either scored a goal or recorded a save in their final SC home game. And now we're here with water polo beat writer Drake Lee. He's been on the show the whole time. But USC plays number 1 ranked UCLA to wrap up the regular season. 2 weeks from now, the Bruins are really good. But Drake, can USC really pull off an upset here?
I think they can. They just got to play flawlessly. I mean, that's how it goes in sports usually. In order to beat a team that's better than you on paper, you got to play flawlessly. And that means allowing less than 12 goals for USC, which is the number that USC allowed last time when they played them in the MPSF tournament. That means you got to limit Tommy Grunmo to less than 5 goals. He was the MVP of that game. You can't allow that to happen. And the number one thing that I gathered from talking to Coach Marco Pintarg was that they got to play defense. Like I said, not allowing 12 goals. Colin McKennie's got to step up in the cage. And I mean, the big 3 offensively, Di Martire, Ashworth, and Earhart, they got to play well for this team.
Jake Earhart, by the way, 3 goals behind number 7 all-time on the career goals leaderboard. Drake, do you see any chance of him getting there in the one game?
I think so. I think he's got to have a big game. He's got to at least get a hat trick.
So that game is 2 weeks from now, though. USC is going to have their Senior Day alumni game coming up next week. But we'll send it over. That's going to be in 2 weeks. Going to be a hell of a game.
USC women's volleyball had a rocky trip to the mountains over the weekend. The Trojans fell to Utah in 3 sets before losing to the Buffaloes in 4. USC struggled over the weekend, dealing with an injury to an all-around superstar outside hitter, Skylar Fields. Fields is on the odds to win the Pac-12 Player of the Year. Without her, USC struggled to rack up kills. Kaylin Smith led the way with 16 against Colorado. The Trojans came into the weekend ranked number 24 in the nation, but after only picking up a single set between the 2 matches, USC is no longer in the top 25. Eli and Sam have more on USC volleyball.
From the monitor to the couch, it's time for another round of Cardinal in Gold or Reckless in Bold. We'll provide some hot takes and we'll tell you whether they're Cardinal in Gold or Reckless in Bold. Let's get it started, Sam, with Skylar Fields, her potentially going to play. Will USC make the NCAA tournament this season?
This is absolutely Cardinal and Gold. You can go ahead and lock this one in. I mean, you get to 20 wins, that's probably your number. It's been the number out of the Pac-12 in the past, and it'll be the number again this year. They're on 16. You start looking in account. You got Oregon State. You got the Arizona schools this weekend, and you got Cal. There's 4. This UCLA team is down. There's 5. And they've beat an Oregon team that was in the committee's early release top 10. Who's to say they can't go to Washington and get a win? I think there's 20 wins easily on this schedule, and that's all you're going to need. Skylar Fields is already out of that boot. I think she'll be back sometime before the season's over.
Yeah, Oregon came in at number 9 in those initial rankings. USC picked up the win at home, but I'm not so confident. Skylar Fields is still on crutches. That is a major concern, especially for this weekend. These are 2 wins you need to pick up against Arizona and Arizona State. If you drop even one of them, you are on the bubble, likely on the outside looking in. I think it's a reckless and bold statement to say USC will make the NCAA tournament. That would be a disappointment because of where they were, but ultimately their best players are still mostly freshmen outside of Skylar Field, so there is a lot of potential there.
Well, we'll stay on the subject of Skylar Fields for our second take here. Skylar Fields, is she the Pac-12 Player of the Year?
This one's absolutely Cardinal Bold. There's no other way to put it. She is one more Pac-12 Player of the Week than any other player in the conference. She leads the conference in kills. She leads the conference in kills per set. And when you just watch her play, she is a dominant force on that back line for USC. She flies across the court to go pick up kills. And there was even a game a couple weeks ago where she had half the swings for USC and half the kills. They can't do it without her. And for that reason, USC is where they are because of her, which is why she will be Pac-12 Player of the Year.
Yeah, I absolutely can't disagree with you here. It's Cardinal and Gold all the way. You mentioned those Pac-12 Player of the Week awards. 1, 2, 3 of them. Nobody else has won more than 1. You mentioned she's the leader in kills in the Pac-12. There's a gulf between Hammond in second and Skylar Fields at the top. She makes everything churn for this USC offense. She is what makes this team go.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll give you one more hot take. it's time for one that looks far into the future. Will this USC team with this talented freshman class win a national title in their time in the program?
Hold on, one second real quick. I think I'm getting a call. I'm sorry, that was the Big Ten, the ACC, and the SEC calling me. That is absolutely reckless and bold. How about we start with a Final Four? It's been 11 years since this storied program has ever even made a Final Four. Let's get back to the tournament, maybe win a couple of games before we start looking ahead at national titles. There's too much talent around the country to go ahead and pencil in a freshman group that's still only playing about 2 in that first 6 to pencil them into a national title.
It's the #1 recruiting class in the nation, and you see the talent that exists. Jordan Wilson is already a star. Gala Trubin at the libero spot is already a star, probably the favorite to win Freshman of the Year, maybe even the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year in the Pac-12. There are more players on this team. Look at Riley McGinnis, the daughter of USC legend Willie McGinnis. It's raw talent, but it is there. She can fly. We talk about how Skylar Fields can move. Riley McGinnis can get up further than she can. And someone to watch out for. She's not part of the freshman class. Mia Tuaninga, the setter, is a dominant player. She picked up 10 aces a couple weeks ago. Only one of 3 players in the Pac-12 to ever do that. She will still be on that team. She will be a senior and a leader. She's only a sophomore right now. She's so good. And in the Big Ten, they'll play the best competition and have a chance to beat them. That's going to do it for another segment of Cardinal and Gold, Reckless and Bold. Let's send it back to the desk.
Well, folks, that is all we have for your USC Sports Update. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you next week. From everyone at Annenberg Media, this is the Sports Scene, and remember to fight on.